Hello again YouTube, and welcome back to Just Get a Tesla. And on this week's video I'm going to do a bit of a range test. How much difference does it make if I hammer it? So let's do a bit of context first. I've got a Model Y long range, a 2022 car, and that has got a published WLTP range of 331 miles. Now, as we know from previous videos, WLTP is, what's the technical term for it? Bobbins. And Tesla, despite having to advertise with WLTP, never actually use it. They use EPA instead. But EPA, similarly to WLTP, is just a guess. So what I'm going to do on this video is I'm going to basically drive the car in a loop down the hill to Fraserburgh and then back up again, and I'm going to do it twice. The first time out I'm going to drive in chill mode, and I am going to be the most chillaxed person it is possible to be on this rather damp Sunday morning in the so-called summer. And on the second drive I'm going to be Mr. Abbott, and I'm basically going to stick it on normal dynamics, and I am going to hammer it at every single opportunity to do so. And we're going to see on both of those the difference that makes in terms of both efficiency used and therefore range. We're going to start and finish in the square here in Newpitslager every single time. So we are going to reset, and we're going to reset this one as well. Swipe that across. Let's see how we do. So as I said, I am going to, on this leg, drive as relaxed as I can. I'm in no particular hurry. It's a beautiful sunny day, as you can see, and basically we're just going to amble along. Now, this route that I'm going to be taking, I think, has got a bit of everything in it, which is why I hope that it's going to be a reasonable test route. So we're going to do some cross-country driving. We are then going to go through town, and then we're going to have to climb back up the hill because I live well above sea level up here. We're going to climb back up the hill, and we are going to do it all again, but driving a little harder. So I'm really just relaxed here. I just accelerated away ever so slightly out of the restriction in the village before coming up to the turn, and again here I am basically just going to let the car roll itself down the hill. I'm accelerating, but I'm doing it really gently. I'm in no hurry. I'm relaxed. The sun is blaring down. It's 25 degrees. It's gorgeous. Let's just have a nice, calm trip. I think the interesting thing to note from the start is, just like in a petrol or a diesel car, for those of you who are looking at this from the perspective of not having an electric car, when you first start off, the energy use is higher, just as it is when your engine is warming up. So when your engine is cold, you burn more fuel, and it's actually the same in an EV. And you might be wondering why that is. Well, it's basically because the car is actually trying to warm the cabin. Again, I know it's a beautiful subtropical day, but it does need to heat the cabin up to the 19 that I've got it set to. So it is taking some heat, which it's having to create electrically, and pump that into the cabin, which is burning a little bit of power. But since we set off from the square, I am on 250 and dropping watt hours per mile. So 250 is 4 miles per kilowatt hour, and I want that to be higher. If I can get that towards 5 miles per kilowatt hour, which would be 200 watt hours per mile on this leg, at least on the downhill section, that would be pretty good. Now, the only way I'm realistically going to be able to do that is by doing what I'm doing now, which is basically driving gently. I am thinking about the contours of the road and the undulations and trying to get it so that I am conserving momentum. A bit like when you are trying to hypermile back in the days of doing this in a petrol or diesel car. Especially if you had a manual box, you could hypermile and just try and keep the car rolling on the momentum. So I'm basically doing the same thing here. What I'm trying not to do, as I just did them briefly, is to start regenerating power. What I want to do at the moment is conserve momentum, and that means not putting momentum back into the battery pack via regenerative braking. That's not really what this kind of efficiency run is about. And I'm targeting around 50 miles an hour. Again, you don't have to do 60 everywhere in a 60 limit, so no more than 50, around 50, that's quite good. As we start dropping down here towards Stricken, I am going to need to dial a bit of regen in because the twists as we get towards the bottom get a bit twistier than twisty. I think this could be quite fun on run 2 when we're trying to hoon it. This constant drizzle though is absolutely doing my head in. It's been like this for days. And please note, I am on auto setting for the wipers, and despite all of the software improvements recently, Tesla Vision is still rubbish when it comes to intermittent drizzle. And one thing we're good at in the UK, especially up here, is intermittent drizzle. It is a bit of a problem. Okay, so we are at the bottom of the road. We have done 4 miles and 136 watt-hours per mile, 136. That is impressive, but I have basically been wafting it downhill. Stricken is lower than New Pittsligo. We are now going to head lower again, albeit with a bit of hill climbing first, as we head off towards Fraserburgh. Now obviously that is absolutely at sea level, as you will see as we roll through the harbour. So I don't think it'll stay at 136, but I am hoping that I can keep it at around 200. Let's see how we do. So again, I'm targeting 50, but I don't have to stick to 50. So, you know, wafting along there at 45 as we're building up to it, that's absolutely fine. Now, we're going uphill, not dramatically uphill, but we are going uphill, and my energy use is increasing. So it has nearly doubled. Well, I've added 100, more than 100 now, 241, it was on 136. But we are getting pretty much towards the top, and then it is kind of all downhill again from here. So again, I'm just feathering the right foot and loving the new graphics. So, you know, when you get a car off on the side there and you see it sideways on, that's a big improvement on what we used to get. So feathering the right foot, trying to get the power braking gauge basically neutral, sat in the middle. 229 and dropping again. What I'm going to have to do now is apply a bit more throttle to get back up to my target speed of 50. You know, this is not about being an absolute snail and crawling along at 20 miles an hour. That's not realistic. Just driving gently and chillaxed. That's the objective. So we're dropping into the 40 limit through Memsey, so basically just ease back on the throttle to be able to put it into regenerative braking and then get it to 40, and then basically try and roll along without having to do much in terms of throttle or anything else to be able to get as close to 40 and sustain it as I can do. We're on 201 watt-hours per mile, so my 200 target is there or thereabouts. Stay there, please. Thank you very much. So a slight bit more throttle just to be able to push it along, but we're in no tearing hurry and we want to keep the average down. That's the important bit. So these kind of conditions really are not ideal for eco driving. It is cool, it is damp, there is actual water in the air, so the air is thicker, which means you burn more energy getting through it. The road surface is damp. I don't think it's dramatically damp, but it is damp, and that means, again, you burn more power to defeat the rolling resistance that you would get. I'm also on Michelin Cross Climate 2 tyres, so they're good in the wet, but I think they probably already have more rolling resistance than if I was on a summer tyre. So again, it's a bit of swings and roundabouts. Okay, so into the Broch, 40 miles an hour for this bit up to the roundabout. We're going to turn right and go down the hill. We're on 207 watt hours per mile, with a nice bit of downhill and then a trundle to the harbour. Hopefully that's going to hit 200, which is where I want to get it to. Can we maintain our momentum around here? Yes, we can. So very gently rolling downhill. So a little bit of regen dialed in just to hold it to 40. That'll help. So as we're trying to be energy efficient, I eased off nice and early there just to let the thing naturally slow itself down. I am expecting that I'm likely to need to stop, but there's nothing coming to my right, so I can keep rolling at 20 mile an hour, which is better than stopping. Good for efficiency. 192 now. Remember, it was at 136 back in Stricken. 193. Let's see how we do as we roll down South Harbour Road in what can only be described as weather. So 194 as we turned there at the Lighthouse Museum. So 194, that's the benchmark number. No problem. Now, this is probably going to be good for efficiency because I thought I was going to be following behind a caravan because he's going to be bimbling his way up the hill, and I thought, great, I'm basically going to follow him, and if he's going to be doing 45 then so am I, but never mind. So we're going to again go as gently as we can now. It's essentially one big uphill, a few up and downy bits, but basically we have got to climb uphill to my village, so we're going to continue to drive as gently as we can do and see how little power that we can burn. A little bit further on, and as you can see, we have picked up some traffic. It's not a motorhome, but we're still doing 45 miles an hour, so this is even more chillaxed than I was intending to be because the target speed is 50, and I am basically trying to waft it along behind this stick of traffic just to basically keep my distance and again be as energy efficient as possible. So despite us climbing up from sea level, I'm still only on 244 watt hours per mile, which is pretty impressive actually, because I'm usually burning a fair bit more than that. I know this is a flatter bit, and it is, but it has been relatively consistently uphill for a while, and then the final climb towards home does go up a little bit more. No need for me to be doing anything dramatic with the throttle. In fact, I am feathering it more than I really would do normally because there's no point in catching up on the guys in front. What I suspect we're getting is that they are coming up on their own mechanical performance in whatever gear that their car is in, where basically you start chugging along a little bit more and slowing down despite putting more throttle in, because we're down to 40 almost, you know. That is quite slow, and it's just gone to 250 watt hours per mile. It'll go higher, 252, and when we turn left towards the village, it climbs a little bit more before dropping back down again. So I think we're going to end on about maybe 265, something like that. I want to maintain as much momentum as I can around this turn, but I do know that it is, it's surprisingly tight, and the transition into uphill does make it a bit more of a challenge. So I really am going to try and waft it along here. So we're coming up on the 30, so again we'll pull back on the throttle now, regenerate power, not because I need the power into the battery, but because I want to get the average efficiency number higher. So here we go. We've hit the speed marker, 252, 250 now, it's saying on here. A little bit more uphill just before we get to the square, and we'll see how we've done. I said 265, didn't I? 255, maybe, something like that. Wow, not even close. I'll go straight back into the same parking spot. So, halfway through, and 246 watt-hours per mile on that 25 mile loop. That is pretty impressive. So if I go on to the 30 mile average, it's now saying 218 miles of range because I'm averaging 236. So 218 miles of range from 70% of the battery. So that's 311 miles of range forecasted versus 331, which is the WLTP, which it is never ever going to get. So that is pretty decent, although to get anything like that I really have had to be driving it pretty gently, as we can see. So what we're going to do then is we are going to reset Chillax, and we're going to change the name of it to something a little bit more appropriate. So for the hammer time run, the rules of engagement are completely different. On this one, I want to go as fast as I can legally still, and I am not interested in energy efficiency at all. What I want to do is have the most fun as you can do on a lovely subtropical summer's day like this. So the first change that we're going to get is as we go up here and we clear the speed limit, we're going to apply a bit more power, get ourselves up to a little bit more speed, and then immediately drop it back down again to do the turn towards Stricken. And again, I am now on standard mode rather than chill mode, and I am basically going to push as quickly as I realistically can do. And we've already got traffic ahead of us, which is going to slow us down, unless, of course, we get the chance to be able to go past them. Depends how fast they're going, of course. But getting up to speed quicker will absolutely eat a load of power that wasn't going to be eaten otherwise. So he's already overtaking. Maybe we'll be doing the same thing as we go down here. So as we go down here at speed limit, what can we notice already? Well, it's on 294. It's not actually as bad as it could be. It's on 293 now. But when we got to the turn at the bottom of Stricken on the Chillax leg, it was on 136. I think this is going to be on at least 100 more than that, if not more like 250 by then. So I do need to slow it a little bit down on these. So that was basically a decent lift just to be able to pull the car back. This is all-wheel drive, which means that you can actually use the electric motors to balance the car really nicely as you go into these bends. You can lift off mid-corner, and instead of getting lift off oversteer, it just tucks neatly into the corners, which is one of the reasons why I love electric drivetrains as much as I do. So we're coming up into the 30. Again, we're going to do a big lift off to try and I don't want to use the brakes, I want to regenerate my way down, but that's just about got us down into the 30. So what was I saying about how much power we would have burned? 136 it was last time, and I said, oh, 236. No, 177. So even huffing it, let's remember that number, 177 versus 136. So these conditions really are not good for efficient driving, as I was saying earlier. So the fact that on the Chillax run I was able to beat the 4 miles per kilowatt hour, or 250 watt hours per mile target, is brilliant. I wonder how this one's going to go. I'm surely burning more power on this run than I was on the previous one. So as we approach the 40 limit through Memsey, again I'm driving a completely different profile, so I am going to maintain the speed right up until the point where I need to do a full lift to be able to get it inside the speed limit. So we'll do it now, all the way off. It's freaky how well I know this car now in terms of being able to judge that perfectly. And then just because we can, we're going to do this. Coming up now on Fraserburgh, you can see the Broch in front of us, and then we're into our 40 and then 30 mile an hour trundle. It'll be interesting to see what the number is as we go past the Lighthouse Museum. We're on 256. Yeah, this isn't as much of a difference as I was expecting, I'll be honest. I mean, I'm even going round the roundabout faster, you know. I'm definitely pushing the car more than I was on the other leg. Well, there's only so much you can push, obviously, and like now I can't accelerate up to 40 because I've got the guy in front of me in a Fiat who is, I assume, just going to roll down the hill, so we're going to have to do the same thing. Let's have a play with the graphics as we go through the harbour area. Although at the moment there aren't really any cars for it to properly pick up, although I love the way it picked all of them up. And again, the same here. This is a big improvement to me, a big improvement on the new software. Okay, so again, we'll go slightly brisker along here. So as we make the turn here at the Lighthouse Museum, the number is 229. So it's definitely burned more power than it did on the Chillax one, but not dramatically so at the moment. Where I think we are likely to burn probably significantly more is on our way back up the hill, and that's purely because of the fact that we're going to be going quicker uphill, which will definitely take more energy out of the battery. But so far, I mean, it's burned more, but it's not burned vast amounts more. I'm actually surprised by that. So as we come up on the roundabout now on the edge of town, I'm kind of hoping some of this traffic is going to clear itself. He's turning right, because it'd be good to be able to hoof it up the hill a little bit more aggressively than I was able to do last time. But again, this is supposed to be the Hammer Time leg as opposed to the Chillax leg. So let's have a go. Okay, he's gone away, but we're following the speed limit. So it's a 30 miles an hour limit until we get to here. But then we are going to do a little bit of warp 9 just to get it straight up to 60. This car is fun. Well, that's burned more power to start off with. 243 watt hours per mile as we start the hill climb. So far, at least, I have been able to maintain the speed limit. The only other traffic is also doing so, which is good. I was stuck at 45 for most of the climb up the hill on the Chillax leg, so this wants to be quicker. How are we doing on power? We're on 263 watt hours per mile. So again, we are definitely burning more power uphill, but we're not burning as much as I thought we might be, which is interesting. Now we're all slowing down a little bit now. We're down to, we got to 51 there for a second, which is almost asleep. It certainly isn't hammer time, is it? Although this is the problem. If I was to absolutely blat this thing cross country on B roads, yeah, and I was to do point to point and then back again as Chillax, and then point to point absolutely hooning it, then I'm certain I would get a bigger difference between the two numbers. But that's not what this test is about. I'm just trying to think about this in terms of this is just about driving styles. This is kind of a normal trip. Let's go down to the shops. So we've been past Tesco and Lidl twice. Let's go down to shops and let's drive the car differently and see how much difference that realistically makes in the real world. I don't think it's going to have made as big a difference as I was thinking. Now, so one turning left and one turning right. So we are going to get the ability here to apply a bit of power to get ourselves straight back up to warp 6. Gosh, we are as well. Right, what are we down to? 13, 10, 9, 8. It really picks its skirts up once it gets going. Although that was almost slow from not quite a stand. What was that, 9 miles an hour? I expected it would punch me more. If I had the acceleration boost, or if I had the performance model, I'm quite confident that that really would have done. Maybe I need to ask my friends at Tesla Aberdeen, can I borrow some cars? That might be a real world test that we can do. Anyway, as we go along here, where are we at now? 282, that's more like it. A bit more hammer time now that some of the traffic has cleared. Although look, here comes the misty rain again. I can do a slightly higher powered turn back off towards the village for the final mile or so. So we'll just do a big lift, pull the car down, turning in slightly quicker than we really want to go, and then putting as much power down as I can as I go around the bend. You can't actually put as much power down on these cross climber 2 tyres as I could do on summer tyres. That is one thing I have noticed. I think they're brilliant performance as an all-around tyre, but they're not quite as hoonable as the summers were. And that, I suppose, shouldn't really be that much of a surprise. I will have a 5,000 mile update review on these tyres. That will be coming once I've actually gone through. I'm on 4843, so not that much longer to go. And back into the village. So 285. And I was getting up here, if you remember, thinking that I might hit 265, but in the end I came in at just under 250. Well, I think this is going to come in at about 275. It's not really that big a difference, and that is a real surprise to me. I mean, okay, maybe I haven't got the ability to be able to absolutely rag this thing on this test route that I've done, but basically this is me going to Tesco and back. This is me taking the car down to the shops. Now, I live in the countryside, so the shops aren't just round the corner. Not the big shops anyway. But I'm fascinated by this because I really, really, really thought there'd be a huge difference between me just wafting it along doing 45, 50 and me banging the thing up to the speed limit at every single opportunity that I got. And I have genuinely done full power restarts every opportunity that I've had. If you look at it, I really have gone for it. So the fact that it's going to come in where it has genuinely is a surprise. We're parked back up, and hammer time did 279 watt hours per mile. It did 247 watt hours per mile on the Chillax mode, so that's only 13% more power burned than when I was wafting it. That is a surprise. And if you look at this, it's now saying 161 miles of range on 59% of the battery. So if you calculate that out, it's on about 274 miles. Now, it was only giving me, 311 miles previously. So again, it's a difference, but it's not a massive difference. So what do I make of this? I'm genuinely astonished. I know it's not the biggest test route possible, and it's not the most dynamic bit of driving that I could have done, but I mean, I was accelerating properly at every opportunity that I got. I was plowing it round bends. I was doing 60 up the hill as opposed to 45, 50. And yet it only made a 13% difference, 13, in the amount of energy burned. So my conclusion is pretty simple. If you've just got a Tesla, drive the thing, go and have fun. Don't worry too much about range and efficiency on a day-to-day basis. Yes, if I was driving this car really a long distance, and I'm going to be doing that next week, right? If I was planning to go from one end of the country to the other, then sure, I'll stick it on chill. I'll be thinking about trying to waft the thing along, because on a really long trip, that's going to make a difference. But day to day, thrash it. Go and have fun. It really isn't going to make a difference. And on that sporty note, we're going to leave it there. Thanks so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I will see you back here very soon on Just Get a Tesla.